Sometimes a woman walks into a room, and the air itself sits up a little straighter. Not because she is the loudest voice, or the brightest dress, or the smoothest smile, but because she carries something rooted deep within her, a quiet thunder, a gentle strength, a soul that knows its own weight. And when she moves, the world understands that she is not searching for approval, applause, or attention. She is simply being, and that alone changes the air. People look at women like this and whisper, "She always finds the best men." But it is not luck nor fate, nor a winning ticket drawn from some celestial lottery. It is habit. It is discipline stitched into the seams of her life. These women cultivate themselves the way a gardener tends a cherished tree, with patience, with truth, with boundaries that rise like fences and roots that dig like anchors. The best men are not magnets, they are mirrors, and they reflect what such a woman already holds. A woman who attracts the best men is first loyal to her own soul. She listens to her spirit whisper in the quiet corners of the morning, when the world is still stretching itself awake. She listens in the tired hours of the night, when old fears knock on the door of her mind. She listens not because she believes every thought, but because she respects the voice within her that asks to be heard. She knows that a life lived without self-listening is a life lived lost. So she opens her heart to her own truth. She sweeps away the clutter others have piled upon her. She folds the corners of her dreams back into shape. She decides every day that she belongs to herself before she belongs to anyone else. And when she speaks, her voice carries the calm power of someone who does not barter her worth. She has learned that shrinking herself to fit into someone's fragile world only cracks her own foundation. She learned it the hard way, perhaps through heartbreak, betrayal, or the slow draining of her joy. Every strong woman has faced a moment where she chose to either break or grow. This woman chose growth. She made the decision to rise with the dawn instead of curling into the night. She stitched her wounds with wisdom and walked forward, even when her feet trembled. There is a certain grace in a woman who refuses to allow pain to turn her bitter. She lets it sharpen her instead. She also watches the way she carries her kindness. It is not scattered like scraps for strangers to take without thanks. It is not poured endlessly until she is empty. She gives with intention. She loves with clarity. She knows the sweetness of her heart is powerful, but only when it is protected. If someone steps into her life with rough hands and careless words, she does not beg for gentleness. She simply closes her door. She knows she deserves a love that honors her spirit, not one that drains it. And because she knows this, she attracts a man who knows it too. A woman who consistently draws worthy men into her world also walks with a sense of purpose. She does not let her days drift like leaves on a careless wind. She wakes with direction, even if she is still learning the map. She does not wait for someone else to point her toward meaning. She builds it. She grows it. She follows the callings placed quietly, but firmly inside her. Her work, her hobbies, her passions, the things that spark her mind and warm her chest. These are her companions long before any man enters the scene. She understands that a life rich with purpose is a life that cannot be dimmed by loneliness, nor lifted by attachment alone. When a woman walks with purpose, the world sees it. And the best men, the men who are drawn to strength of character rather than weakness of need, step forward. And there is something special about the way she tends to her spirit. She is not perfect. She is not trying to be perfect. Perfection is a brittle shell that cracks under the first weight of reality. She knows that. Instead, she strives to be whole. She forgives herself when her feet stumble on familiar ground. She speaks gently to her reflection on the days her confidence feels thin. She pulls herself back up when she falls into old habits of doubt. She knows that wholeness is not a final destination, but a lifelong practice, a sacred tending. And because she tends to herself with such tenderness, she draws men who admire the way she carries her own soul. This woman also understands the art of boundaries. She treats her peace like a treasure, not a toy. She protects it with steady hands. She says no when needed, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. She does not let someone's disappointment rewrite her decisions. She does not let someone's insecurity rearrange her priorities. She is a guardian of her time, her energy, and her emotional space. And when a man encounters a woman who honors herself so fiercely, he either rises to match her or steps aside to make room for one who can. She does not lose sleep over which one he chooses. Her confidence is not loud. It is not the type that demands attention. It is the type that rests quietly in her bones. The type that lets her sit alone at lunch without feeling lonely. The type that lets her walk away from a man who does not value her without feeling empty. The type that lets her enter a room without shrinking herself to make others comfortable. It is confidence built from experience, from self-study, from surviving seasons that once threatened to pull her under. The best men are not attracted to arrogance masquerading as power. They are drawn to confidence that glows softly from within, steady and sure like a lantern in the dark. When she loves, she does not lose herself. She does not melt her identity into someone else's dream. She knows that partnership is a dance, not a sacrifice of identity. She brings her own rhythm, her own music, her own steady step. She does not rely on a man to be her sun. She has already learned how to shine. She invites him to stand in her light, not to become it. And because she loves like this, she attracts men who respect her individuality rather than trying to erase it. There is also a certain courage in her, a brave softness, the kind that lets her be honest about what she wants without fear of seeming too much. She knows that her desires are not burdens. Her expectations are not demands. Her standards are not walls built to keep love away, but gates built to let the right love in. She has lived long enough to understand that lowering her standards is a shortcut to regret. So she keeps them high, not to challenge men but to honor herself. And she stands tall, not because she wants to be admired, but because she refuses to fold. She has weathered storms fierce enough to strip the bark from a tree, yet here she stands with leaves still growing. She has faced nights that stretched painfully long, and yet the morning still found her. She has cracked, she has cried, she has questioned her worth in the quiet corners of her life. But each time she found a way to rise again. A woman who rises again and again carries a glow that cannot be dimmed. And that glow calls good men like a lighthouse calls ships looking for safe harbor. She is also mindful of how she speaks to herself. She knows that the words she whispers into her own mind become the foundation of her life. So she speaks hope. She speaks strength. She speaks possibility. She reminds herself of her value, even on the days she can't quite feel it. She does not allow the voice of doubt to be the loudest sound in her world. She quiets it with truth. She has learned that the most important relationship she will ever have is the one she has with her own soul. This woman treats her time as a garden and plants only what she wishes to harvest. She surrounds herself with people who nourish her spirit, not drain it. She walks away from chaos without apologizing for choosing peace. She is not afraid to be alone, for she knows that solitude is not emptiness but clarity. And because she is unafraid of standing alone, she never clings to a man out of fear. She chooses him because she wants him, not because she needs him. That is a rare strength, and the best men know it when they see it. She learns constantly. She grows deliberately. She reads, she listens, she observes. She studies herself the way an artist studies the world, with curiosity and patience. She tries to be better than she was yesterday, not to prove anything to anyone, but to honor her own journey. She understands that the moment she stops growing is the moment she stops living fully. A woman who keeps learning never stagnates. And a man who values growth sees her as a partner, not a placeholder. She also carries gratitude like a gentle shawl around her shoulders. She does not ignore the hardships she has faced, but she does not let them blind her to the beauty still waiting in the world. She thanks the journey that shaped her. She thanks the lessons that strengthened her. She thanks the small joys that brighten her days. Gratitude gives her a softness that balances her strength. And that balance, that harmony of steel and silk, is what attracts men of character. A woman like this does not fear love, nor does she chase it. She welcomes it when it comes, but she does not crumble when it leaves. She knows that her story does not fall apart because someone else walks out of it. She knows that every ending is a clearing for a beginning. So she opens her heart with caution but not with walls. She trusts herself enough to trust the world again. She has learned that the best men are not drawn to perfection, beauty, or charm alone. They are drawn to depth, to integrity, to resilience, to the kind of woman who has built herself with care, a woman who knows her worth without shouting it, a woman who carries her soul the way a queen carries her crown, not as a decoration, but as a birthright. This woman has walked through her own shadows and returned with light. She has faced her own fears and returned with courage. She has met her own flaws and returned with compassion. And because she understands herself, she attracts a man who strives to understand her too. A man who brings peace, not confusion. A man who brings effort, not excuses. A man who brings consistency, not chaos. She knows that attracting the best men is not about bending, twisting, chasing, or proving. It is about becoming. Becoming the woman whose spirit is strong enough to stand alone and soft enough to love deeply. Becoming the woman whose habits shape her into someone who does not settle. Becoming the woman who chooses herself first, so that she can choose a partner with clarity rather than desperation. And when such a woman finally meets a man worthy of her heart, she recognizes him not because he fits her fantasy, but because he respects her reality. He does not fear her strength. He does not shrink from her truth. He stands beside her, not in front of her or behind her. He recognizes her not as a trophy, but as a companion, not as a possession, but as a partner. Women who attract the best men do not wait for someone to make them whole. They walk into love whole already. They do not wait for someone to build them up. They have already built themselves. They do not wait for someone to give their life meaning. They live with meaning. And love, when it comes, becomes a beautiful addition, not a desperate need. This is why such women glow. This is why they shine without trying. This is why they move through the world with an aura of quiet power. They are rooted. They are ready. They are resilient. And the best men recognize that they have found something rare. But this is not a story about perfection. This is not a story about flawless women or impossible standards. This is a story about habits, daily choices, quiet decisions, small acts of self-respect that become a woman's compass. These habits shape her. They guide her. They strengthen her. They help her rise above the noise of the world and build a life filled with clarity, love, and truth. Because attracting the best men is not magic. It is mastery. Mastery of the self. Mastery of the heart. Mastery of the quiet, stubborn belief that a woman who respects herself will always draw love that respects her in return. So to every woman listening, remember this. You do not need to chase what is meant for you. You only need to become the woman you were always meant to be. The kind of woman whose spirit is so steady, so whole, so beautifully grounded that the best men do not simply notice her. They recognize her, they rise to meet her. They stay. Not because she tries to attract them, but because she attracts them by being herself. When a woman stops making a home out of other people's approval, something inside her shifts. It doesn't happen all at once. It begins quietly, almost like a soft crack in an old shell. She starts noticing the places where she has bent herself out of shape just to be liked, where she trimmed the edges of her own truth just to keep someone comfortable. She notices how often she swallowed her own voice so the room would stay calm. And she realizes that all this effort left her hungry for a kind of love she could never receive from those she was trying to please. That moment is the beginning of her return to herself. She starts honoring her own voice the way one honors a fragile seed sprouting in a forgotten pot. She listens to her thoughts without judging them as too loud, too emotional, or too dramatic. She listens to her heart without calling it foolish. She gives her intuition a seat at the table, instead of locking it out in the cold. The woman she is becoming knows that her inner voice is not noise. It is a compass that has been trying to guide her long before she learned to distrust it. Slowly, she rises into the shape she was meant to be. Her decisions no longer hinge on how others react, but on whether her soul feels steady afterward. She learns that some people will not clap for her when she grows, and that's fine. Their silence is not a sign she should shrink. Their discomfort is not a sign she should return to old versions of herself. When she chooses truth over approval, she stops walking on the shaky bridge built by other people's opinions and begins walking on solid ground that belongs only to her. People around her notice the shift even before she does. Her posture changes. Her energy settles. She no longer reaches outward like a branch searching for sunlight. She becomes her own source of warmth. When someone praises her, she smiles, but she no longer breathes in the praise like oxygen. When someone criticizes her, she listens, but she no longer lets the words carve themselves into her bones. She has learned that validation is a gift, not food. It can sweeten her day, but it cannot sustain her life. This new way of living draws a different kind of person toward her. She becomes the woman who speaks with quiet certainty, who doesn't bargain for affection, who doesn't contort herself into someone else's dream. A woman like this is magnetic because she is whole. She is not auditioning. She is not performing. She is simply present, rooted in herself. And that presence attracts good men who are not intimidated by her strength or confused by her stillness. They come closer because they can sense that she is not looking to be rescued or carried or completed. She is looking to be met. Her self-honoring becomes a light that filters out those who only seek control or convenience. They sense they cannot shape her into anything smaller, and they drift away. Those who remain are the ones who appreciate a woman who knows who she is. And she continues to rise, continues to choose herself, continues to honor the voice that lives within her, because she knows now that this is where her true value grows. A woman's boundaries are not walls built out of fear, but pathways built out of wisdom. There comes a time when she realizes that her peace is not something she can gamble with, not something she can hand out like spare change, not something she can sacrifice just to keep someone close. She begins to understand that love without boundaries becomes a slow erosion, a quiet draining of her own strength. So she starts drawing lines in the soil of her life, clear lines that say what stays, what goes, and what will never be allowed to return. Her boundaries rise from the lessons she has lived, not from bitterness. She remembers the moments she allowed someone's mood to dictate her day, the moments she let someone's disrespect slide, because she feared being alone, the moments she accepted crumbs and called it a feast. Those memories are not heavy on her anymore, but they are carved into her, teaching her how to protect her spirit. So she guards her time from people who only come when they need something. She protects her heart from those who offer love with conditions attached. She chooses her circle with intention, letting only those who bring steadiness, care, and honesty draw near. Yet her boundaries are not sharp or cold. They are soft enough to let love enter. She does not use them to push people away, but to make sure the right people can come closer without harming her. She knows that vulnerability is not weakness when paired with discernment. She opens herself slowly, like a flower measuring the sunlight, revealing her truth only to those who have shown they can hold it with care. Her kindness still shines, her heart still warms, but her sense of self no longer dissolves when someone else steps into the picture. A woman like this does not raise her voice to prove her boundaries. She enforces them quietly, steadily, and without apology. When someone disrespects her, she does not fight for their understanding. She simply steps back. When someone demands more than she can give, she does not empty herself to meet their expectations. She offers what she can without abandoning herself. When someone tries to guilt her into staying in situations that drain her, she does not explain her departure. She trusts that her peace is reason enough. Men feel the strength of this without her having to say a word. The best ones respect it immediately. They understand that a woman who protects her peace is not difficult, but disciplined. Not distant, but discerning. Not cold, but careful with the treasure she carries inside. They rise to meet her boundaries instead of trying to break them. They show consistency instead of chaos. They communicate clearly instead of leaving her guessing. They know that a woman who honors her limits also honors her love. And for the men who are not ready for such clarity, such steadiness, such self-respect, her boundaries become a natural filter. They fall away without drama. They drift out of her life before they can cause harm. She does not chase after them, because she has learned that anyone who is frightened by a woman with limits is also frightened by a woman with worth. In this balance of firmness and softness, she becomes deeply magnetic. She sends a message without speaking it. She is open to love, but not at the cost of herself. She is kind but not compliant. She is loving but not limitless. And in this alignment of heart and protection, she draws in the kind of man who values not just her affection, but her dignity. There is a quiet power in a woman who wakes each morning with a direction stitched into her spirit. She might not have every step mapped out, but she knows she is walking towards something that matters to her. Purpose doesn't always roar like thunder. Sometimes it hums like a steady engine beneath the surface of her life, guiding her choices, shaping her days, pulling her forward when doubt tries to slow her down. She knows that without purpose, life becomes a scattered puzzle, each piece drifting without meaning. But with purpose, even the smallest actions begin to feel like part of a larger, living story. She learns to give her energy to things that feed her instead of draining her, the jobs that challenge her mind, the passions that spark her curiosity, the creative work that sets her hands moving and her heart glowing, the habits that make her stronger. She moves toward these things not because someone tells her to, but because her soul feels lighter when she does. She understands that purpose is not built overnight. It grows through every small step she takes when no one is watching, every bit of effort she invests in herself when there is no applause waiting at the end. Her purpose becomes a kind of shield. It protects her from distractions dressed as opportunities. It keeps her from giving too much time to people who offer too little honesty. It helps her recognize who supports her growth and who only stands close to dim her light. She has no desire to shrink for anyone. She has no reason to abandon her dreams to make someone else comfortable. Her purpose gives her a center, a still point, a sense of direction that cannot be easily shaken by compliments or criticism. Men notice the difference in her before she even speaks. There is a certain clarity in her eyes, a kind of quiet confidence that comes from knowing where she is going. She doesn't cling to relationships out of fear of being alone, because her life is already full. She doesn't wait for someone to hand her motivation, because she has built her own. She doesn't give her heart to men who wander aimlessly, because she knows aimlessness can become a weight tied to her ankles. She chooses partners who respect her path, not those who try to distract her from it. A man with good character finds himself drawn to her focus. He sees that she moves with intention instead of desperation. He recognizes that she is a woman who will not abandon her dreams for temporary affection. He knows that being with her means supporting each other's goals instead of pulling each other off course. Her purpose becomes a kind of lighthouse, calling in men who carry their own sense of direction and repelling those who drift through life without vision or intention. She does not boast about her plans or parade her progress. She simply lives it. She keeps taking steps, learning, trying, improving. She keeps shaping her life with her own hands. And this steady pursuit of meaning makes her attractive in a way that beauty alone never could. Her life is not defined by who walks beside her, but by the fire she carries within her, the same fire that guides her through every season, every challenge, every new beginning. Emotional balance in a woman feels like a calm river running beneath everything she does. It doesn't mean she never feels anger or sadness or fear. It means she has learned how to hold her emotions without letting them spill into every corner of her life. She has learned how to breathe through storms instead of becoming one. She has learned how to pause before reacting, how to choose her response rather than letting her feelings drag her into choices she will regret later. This balance becomes part of her presence, something people sense even before they truly know her. She understands that emotional chaos is usually a signal, not a destiny. When something disturbs her, she listens. She asks herself what wound is aching, what expectation was unmet, what boundary was crossed. She doesn't run from her feelings, but she also doesn't let them control her. She allows herself to feel, but she refuses to drown. She has faced times when her emotions once ruled her, when every hurt felt like a wildfire and every disappointment felt like a drop into darkness. Through those experiences, she learned that emotional balance is built, not granted. It is carved slowly through self-awareness, patience, and honesty. She becomes careful about the people she lets into her emotional world. She knows that sharing everything with everyone only leaves her vulnerable to misunderstanding and misuse. She knows her peace is too precious to hand to people who thrive on conflict or confusion. She chooses her confidence with intention. She surrounds herself with those who bring clarity instead of chaos, who speak truth instead of stirring trouble. This creates a life that feels less like a battlefield and more like a sanctuary. In this sanctuary, she grows even steadier, even calmer, even more grounded, because her emotions are balanced. She doesn't expect someone else to be responsible for her happiness. She doesn't ask a man to heal old wounds she has not tended. She doesn't blame others for the storm she hasn't faced inside herself. She knows that love cannot thrive when one person becomes a lifeboat for another's unprocessed pain. She carries her own weight, not out of pride, but out of emotional maturity. She makes space for someone else's feelings without losing control of her own. Men who encounter her feel this difference immediately. She doesn't explode at small things, nor does she bury her hurt until it erupts. She communicates with clarity instead of accusations. She listens without preparing a counterattack. She expresses her needs without making them demands. This steadiness draws men who value peace, honesty, and emotional depth. They see that she knows how to navigate conflict without turning it into war. They see that she can love without losing herself. They see that she is not unpredictable or exhausting, but resilient and emotionally aware. Men who thrive on drama do not stay long around her. They find no fuel for their games. They drift away because her balance exposes their instability. She does not chase them, because she understands that anyone who requires chaos to feel alive cannot offer the love she deserves. Her emotional steadiness becomes a quiet filter, letting in those who are ready for real connection and turning away those who are not. This balance also gives her the strength to walk away when needed. She is not held hostage by fear of being alone or overwhelmed by panic at the idea of loss. She can leave situations that harm her because she trusts her ability to rebuild her peace. She knows she is not fragile. She knows she is not dependent on someone else's presence to feel whole. And because she trusts her own emotional foundation, she attracts men who are also stable, present, and willing to meet her with the same level of honesty and steadiness she brings. A woman who invests in her own growth moves through the world with a light that does not flicker when someone looks away. Her confidence is not borrowed from compliments or stitched together from the approval of others. It grows from the work she has done on herself, the lessons she has learned, the habits she has built, and the courage she has shown in facing her own reflection with honesty. She keeps learning even when it's uncomfortable. She keeps stretching her mind even when it would be easier to stay the same. She keeps evolving because she knows that staying still in life is a quiet kind of fading. Her growth shows up in the choices she makes. She reads, not just to escape, but to understand the world and herself. She listens to people wiser than her without feeling smaller. She allows herself to be a student in every environment, whether she is learning a new skill, observing her own patterns, or discovering how to love herself better. Growth for her is not a special occasion but a daily ritual. It is in the questions she asks herself, the risks she takes, the people she surrounds herself with, and the boundaries she strengthens along the way. As she grows, she lets go of the version of herself who accepted less than she deserved. She releases the insecurity that once convinced her she had to prove her worth. She sheds the hesitation that told her to stay quiet when she wanted to speak. Every time she outgrows an old fear, her confidence settles deeper into her bones. It becomes the kind of confidence that doesn't shout or demand attention. It simply exists, steady and sure, like a quiet flame that refuses to die out. Men feel the difference in her presence. She does not need flattery to feel valued. She does not cling to relationships to feel wanted. She doesn't lose herself trying to win someone's affection, because she already knows her worth does not depend on who chooses her. Her confidence makes her patient. She doesn't rush into love out of loneliness. She doesn't settle for half-hearted effort. She is willing to wait for someone who matches the level of care, effort, and maturity she has built within herself. This self-growth also makes her interesting. She has stories to tell, skills to share, dreams she is chasing, and wisdom earned through experience. She can hold a conversation that goes deeper than small talk. She has hobbies that feed her spirit, goals that keep her motivated, challenges that she embraces instead of fearing. She is not just beautiful, she is becoming. And that becoming makes her magnetic. Men who value substance over surface are drawn to this. They see she is not pretending to be confident. She truly is. They see that she is not living in the shadow of her past, but rising from it. They see that she is not waiting for someone to inspire her life, but creating inspiration from within. Her self-growth becomes an invitation for a healthy partnership. The kind of partnership where two people rise together, instead of one carrying the weight of the other. Her growth also sharpens her ability to recognize people who are not willing to grow themselves. She can see when someone is stuck in patterns they refuse to change. She can see when someone uses charm to hide laziness or confidence to hide insecurity. Her awareness becomes a filter that protects her from relationships that would keep her stagnant. A woman who is truly growing cannot stay in places where others refuse to grow with her. Her confidence continues to deepen each time she chooses herself, invests in herself, and believes in her potential. It becomes part of her walk, her voice, her energy. It becomes a glow that does not dim when someone fails to appreciate it, because it was never built for anyone else's eyes. It was built so she could carry her own worth wherever she goes. Gratitude and self-respect sit inside a woman like two steady lanterns, glowing quietly even in the dim hours of her life. They guide her when the world feels heavy, when people misunderstand her, when love disappoints her, when her own doubts try to pull her backward. The glow may be soft, but it is strong enough to keep her centered. A woman who carries gratitude and self-respect doesn't move like someone searching for scraps of validation. She moves like someone who already knows she is enough, someone who doesn't need to beg for space in anyone's life. She walks with a balance that is neither arrogance nor insecurity. It is simply the weight of knowing her value. Gratitude shapes the way she sees her life. It teaches her to look for light even where shadows gather. She doesn't pretend everything is perfect. She doesn't paint her struggles with false optimism. But she learns to appreciate the quiet gifts that appear even in difficult seasons. She notices the lessons hidden inside hardships. She acknowledges the strength she gained from pain she once thought would break her. She sees blessings not only in grand moments, but in everyday gestures, in mornings that greet her gently, in friendships that stay steady, in kind words shared at the right time, in the peaceful minutes she carves for herself. Gratitude softens her edges without weakening her, and self-respect gives her structure. It is the backbone that keeps her from collapsing into old patterns or bending to fit into someone else's comfort zone. It shows up in the way she speaks to herself when no one is listening, in the boundaries she sets even when her heart wavers, in the choices she makes when temptation whispers that settling would be easier. A woman with self-respect does not let loneliness trick her into accepting half-hearted love. She does not let fear convince her to stay in places that drain her spirit. She does not measure her worth by how much she is needed. She measures it by how true she remains to herself. These two qualities together create an inner glow that good men see long before she says a word. Gratitude makes her warm. Self-respect makes her steady. Together they make her magnetic in a way that beauty alone never could. She doesn't carry bitterness in her voice. She doesn't walk with resentment trailing behind her. She doesn't view love as a battlefield or men as opponents. Her past may have wounded her, but she answered those wounds with understanding instead of spite. She learned from them. She healed from them. She rose from them. And because of that, she lives now with a calm clarity that is rare. She doesn't chase love. She welcomes it. She doesn't cling. She connects. She doesn't demand attention. She simply receives it from those capable of giving it without games. Gratitude keeps her heart open, but self-respect keeps her standards strong. She understands that both are necessary. Gratitude without self-respect can lead to settling. Self-respect without gratitude can lead to isolation. Together, they create balance. She knows how to appreciate the good in someone without excusing the harm. She knows how to forgive without returning to what hurt her. She knows how to care deeply without abandoning her own needs. She knows that love grows best in the presence of truth, and she refuses to lie to herself just to maintain a relationship. If someone shows her who they are, she believes them. If someone reveals they cannot meet her with care, she accepts it. She doesn't twist herself into knots trying to change their nature. She lets them go with grace, not with bitterness. Gratitude teaches her that endings are not punishments but openings. Losing someone who did not value her is not tragedy. It is release. It is clearing. It is the universe making room for someone who will treat her heart with the gentleness it deserves. She feels the loss, but she does not let it define her. She has cried enough in her life to know that tears do not destroy strength. They water it. Men who are emotionally mature feel at peace around a woman like this. Her presence is grounding. She brings calm, not because she suppresses her feelings, but because she has learned how to understand them. Conversations with her are steady instead of reactive. She listens with compassion, not with judgment. Her gratitude for life makes her fun to be around. Her self-respect makes her secure. She is the kind of woman who knows how to give love without losing herself in it. She is the kind of woman who knows how to receive love without doubting whether she deserves it. Immature men, on the other hand, do not linger. They sense that she cannot be manipulated by sweet words with no action behind them. They feel the firmness in her boundaries and realize they cannot push past them. They notice her independence and understand she will not rely on them for validation. They see her confidence and know they cannot shake her foundation to make themselves seem stronger, so they leave. And she is grateful when they do. She knows that anyone who cannot handle a woman with self-respect is not someone who should hold her heart. Her gratitude also changes how she loves. She doesn't take effort for granted. She notices the small ways a man shows care. She values honesty, consistency, presence. She appreciates emotional depth, meaningful conversations, shared visions, gentle moments, sincere apologies. She does not expect perfection. She is grateful for sincerity. She knows that love is not built through grand gestures alone, but through small acts of understanding piled over time. A woman like this inspires a man to rise, not because she demands it, but because her presence naturally encourages him to step into his best self. Her self-respect teaches him how to treat her. Her gratitude teaches him how to cherish her. She is not heavy energy. She does not make him feel like he is walking through a maze of emotional landmines. She makes him feel safe, safe to open up, safe to be honest, safe to show his vulnerabilities, safe to be imperfect while still striving to grow. She becomes a quiet force in his life, someone who brings clarity instead of confusion, someone who brings warmth instead of chaos, someone who brings depth instead of drama. He values her not because she plays hard to get, but because she is hard to replace. Her light is distinct. Her presence is rare. Her soul feels like home, not because she tries to be perfect, but because she is grounded in herself. And her grounding shows in how she handles conflict. She does not yell to feel heard. She does not shut down to feel safe. She does not punish with silence or throw past mistakes like weapons. She speaks from understanding. She listens with patience. She communicates with calm. All of this comes from the work she has done to honor her own inner world. She does not bring unresolved storms into someone else's life. She takes responsibility for her emotions while still expecting respect in return. There is something undeniably attractive about a woman who is grateful for what she has yet refuses to accept less than what she deserves. She lives with an inner glow that shows in her posture, her tone, her choices, her boundaries. Men feel it in the quiet moments, when she smiles without forcing it, when she stands up for herself without raising her voice, when she chooses peace over proving a point, when she appreciates the man she loves without sacrificing her own identity. This kind of woman does not need to demand loyalty. Her presence naturally inspires it. She does not need to prove her worth. It is felt. She does not need to chase the best men. Her light brings them to her naturally.